Today we'd like to welcome a musician, drummer extraordinaire, our friend Ty Dennis.
Hello.
Ty, thanks for making the time to be here and doing this interview with us.
Thanks for having me.
The Doors of the 21st Century, to Robbie Kreiger, to Martha Davis and the Motels, to Booker T. Jones, and now Today Was Yesterday, your new band, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Okay.
I'm very excited to share that music with our audience.
Me too.
Yes. So, what can you tell us about your journey through music? Like how, when you grew up and to the point where you started playing professionally?
Well, you know, my dad is a drummer. He's retired now, but so great drummer, jazz drummer in his latter years. So I don't remember there not being drums, you know, in my environment, like in my house. There's like pictures when I'm I have a picture when I'm 17 months old, like in diapers, holding the sticks there, playing the drums. You know, so it was always a drum set, and he used to teach, so there was a constant flow of like good drummers coming over. It's sort of all I know really from that, you know, and the other half of that really was the records that were played in my house, which it's interesting because a lot of those records are still my favorite now. Like I have real memories of like the first Herbie Hancock Headhunters record when I was really young, and I still love that music more than I did then, you know. And like I remember hearing when I was a little kid the Black Cow song by Steely Dan. You know, that's what I called it when I was 7 or 8 or something. So those kind of records were played in my house, you know. The first James Taylor record, lots of stuff with Steve Gadd, all these drummers, you know, who I idolize, you know, all the Harvey Mason, Steve Gadd, all kinds of fusion records, Chick Corea, you know. So that's kind of what got
rock,
it right.
R&B, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, you could say it's in the genes, but also it's in the environment, you know.
Yeah.
That I'm so grateful for getting exposed to that music, you know, and the drums too.
Nice. So at some point you started learning songs and learning, you know, getting better at your instrument. Mm-hmm. At what point did you realize that this is what you wanted to do?
You know, I kind of remember sort of consciously making that decision when I was in junior high school. I remember kind of thinking, okay, now I really want to, you know, before it was like, maybe I want to play basketball and I want to be an astronaut, this, and play drums. And then it became, get rid of that. I'm just going to play drums. That's when I really got into it. And I would like, you know, come home from school and have a little practice routine in the garage, you know, at 12 or 13. And that mainly consists of playing along with records. Like, you know, I was a giant, still am, Toto fanatic. Jeff Porcaro was, you know, is you know, a saint to me. So I was way into that. I'd play along with stuff with Jeff Porcaro and Steve Gadd and emulate all these guys. And then of course, I always had the guidance when I wanted it of my dad to ask him questions, and he taught me, you know, I learned how to read and stuff from him. And so that's when I decided that's what I want to do. This is what I love. This is what I want to be. Yeah.
So would you think that at that point in your life you were like maybe visualizing certain situations and getting excited about playing, like, you know how we sort of manifest things by...
I have memories, you know, playing like with Synchronicity from the Police, you know, to the record, but imagining that was me, you know. Like,
that's nice.
I'm imagining that. Like, what would it be like to be kicking that music back behind the drums, you know, or if I was behind Stuart Copeland's drums. And so, yeah, I would imagine myself doing that, playing with these records, you know, Toto or something, you know, or Journey or whatever it was, or fusion records and stuff like that I would get into.
Yeah. At that age, we probably, you know, related to a lot of different things as we were learning them. And
yeah, you know, maybe it's similar to you. When other guys that age, you know, maybe even like, especially when I got into high school, you know, a lot of guys around my age, maybe they were way into, I wasn't into like Kiss or any of that stuff. I was like into John Scofield, like techno and that record, and Chick Corea, the first electric band, and all this stuff. Like other people in my school had no idea what that music is.
Yeah.
So I never started playing from, you know, I never got into really rock bands a lot until later. You know, that was because it was certain rock, but it was like Steely Dan. It wasn't like the Kiss thing or the heavy metal thing or any of that until later that I even appreciated that.
All right, so we talked about playing and learning tunes and, you know, getting better at your instrument and playing with all these great bands and artists that you've played with. That list, by the way, does not include a lot of other gigs that we've done and a lot of gigs that you've done, you know, on your own, just being a working musician in LA. We talked about your band, your new band. Today was yesterday, and the incredible guests that you have, Robbie Kreiger and Alex Lifeson and Ed Roth on the album, right?
Yeah.
How did you meet Alex Lifeson?
It all ties into Robbie Kreiger, who I've played with since 2001, you know, on a pretty regular basis. The Doors of the 21st Century, and then a lot of stuff with just his band and all kinds of everything in between. So he would, for a long time, he was doing these rock and roll / golf benefit concerts on a yearly basis. So it would be every year, there'd be different guests that would come, and I'd be part of the house, you know, rhythm section. And that's how I initially met Alex Lifeson. He's a golfer and a rock and roller, and he wants, you know, usually it was St. Jude, helping St. Jude, so everyone wants to do a good cause, right? Be part of a good cause. So I met him the first time in 2014 as just being the house band. Got to play a couple Rush tunes. Big thrill for me, you know. Alex, I gotta say, is like the coolest cat, gracious gentleman. So he did a few of these things. Alex would come out. He lives in Toronto. He would come down here and take part in these things. And he did it the last time we did one of these concerts. He participated again, and that was 2022. And my partner in this band, Angelo, and I had already started like demoing these songs, you know. They're still in the pretty early stages. So we were doing a rehearsal at Robbie Kreiger's studio for this benefit. Alex is here at Toronto. We all have hotel rooms like in the north of there. Alex, I'm going the same way. I'm like, hey, I'll give him a ride, Alex. And I, because we were friendly and we would email occasionally and stuff, so we could catch up in the car. So I gave him a ride. We're talking about everything except Rush. Never talk about that. Mm-hmm. He's talking about what's going on with him. And finally, I'm like, you know, if your ears are not too tired, you want to hear a couple songs, I'm doing this thing, I can play them for you. So he's like, yeah, great, I'd love to hear it. So I play him a couple early versions of 2 songs. And he listens, and then he was very complimentary, and he liked what he heard. Asked me a couple questions, and he said, you know, if you wanted some guitar, I'd be happy to play it. I'd love to contribute if you guys want. So of course, that's, you know, I'm a little bit speechless at that moment.
Yeah,
I said that.
That's great.
It's like, and then I asked my partner, and who we're honored, and then 3 weeks later I sent him around there, I sent him the first tune, which is one of the ones I played in the car. Some back amazing tracks, which is called A Louder Silence, actually, on the record. The second song on the record is the first song he did for us. And then one song ended up being 6. So now he's on 6 songs.
That's awesome.
of the stuff is so cool. The stuff he
Yeah.
came up with, it's like kind of part of the songs now. Some of these guitar riffs, some of these interesting things he did.
Actual parts that he
Yeah,
created.
it was interesting because the songs were cool, and then he got a hold of them, and it's like, it's sort of like he took the epic knob and went,
Yeah.
like whoa, and hearing the tracks that he sent, because I love Rush like everyone else, but hearing I never heard him really doing anything outside of that, and then hearing what he would come up with on this stuff, you wouldn't even know it's him on some things, and yet I had no idea what his wheelhouse encompassed.
Yeah.
It's like so impressive. He blew the mixing guy, a co-producer, my friend Clark, blew his mind. He was like, because I've never heard nothing like this. Like, the perfect tones and the production. And then when he wouldn't play too, it was like, wow, he just leaves out spot. But it's perfect. But he doesn't have an ego that has to play.
Yeah.
And like Angelo, he's a great bass player, and he did a lot of the demo parts and some of the rhythm. And Alex liked some of that. And it's like, we're like, just redo it all. Oh no, I really like these parts. I'm leaving those. On one tune, he's like, I like that solo. Let's leave Angelo's solo. And Angelo's like, what's going on here? I'm just a bass player. This is weird. This is crazy. But it was like someone that egoless, who's that legendary. It was just like, I'm just kind of baffled in a good way.
Yeah.
Because we're like, do whatever you want. Do it all over. Oh, no, this is cool. I'm like, okay. Yeah. Very interesting experience.
Let's talk about the creative process for you. How do things show up for you, and how does inspiration hit you first, and what do you do to get to demo and record and all that kind of stuff?
As a drummer, I'm always part of a team in a creative process. Drums. It's hard to compose a song on just drums. I'm part of the bigger picture. So the creative process for me is, ideally my dream creative process is getting with, like-minded pals where no one really tells anyone what to play. Everyone's just, you get the guys in the room to do what they do, and hopefully that inspires you to be, and to totally be you without having to, play by any kind of rules. Like maybe, right, someone that's paying you to play this beat or play this, or you're playing a gig where there's already the tunes are set and you have to copy something. So for me, that's the creative process where I feel the most free, and I can hear something that makes me want to listen to it again. Something I've done, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's surrounding myself with guys like you who, I know are similar background and in the same headspace musically, that I can be as creative as I try to be. Because for a drummer, you're not going to sit there playing drums and compose a song, So it involves more than it involves other people.
Right. So you're more influenced by what happens in the moment, sort of, with
right.
With good musicians, and jamming, sort of, and improvising until you find the thing that you want to do.
But it's got to be, to be ideal, it needs to be the right guys in the room.
Right. Right. Of course.
That can turn you.
Chemistry is everything.
So, and coming from a drummer, drummers are used to sitting there and supporting, and hopefully the inspiration will take you a certain place.
Sometimes you'll be driving somewhere, or you're sitting in somewhere in the afternoon, kind of a inspirational setting. You clear your head or whatever, you start hearing music in your head. Absolutely. Too. So sometimes that could be a trigger.
Absolutely.
Right?
Or it can even be a thing where, like how we did this newest record, which a lot of people do it this way nowadays, remotely, where it's like things are set back and forth, and Angelo and I were never in the same, for this record, in the same room. It was all remote. But it was a situation of, there was no preconceived, I had to the drum parts were completely open to whatever I wanted to do. So for me, it was coming in like without anyone telling me what to do, or there's no one, I'm not beholden to someone paying me to do something. What does Ty as an artist want to do here? Yeah. So that doesn't get to happen. That hasn't got to happen for me too often. Usually it's a band situation where someone wrote a song and they have a certain beat they want, or this was like wide open, really. So it was a real good chance to actually think about how you want to present yourself as an artist. Like, you have to make decisions too. Like, how do I want to sound? Like a great example, someone like Terry Bozzio, right? He makes decisions about how he's going to sound. The drum set's created a certain way to make that sound. So I started thinking like, that way. Like, I'm going to only go down this path because I want to sound a certain way. I'm not going to. I was thinking that way in terms of the drum parts I'm going to create. I don't know if that makes sense. If I'm answering you correctly.
Yes, of course. You have a vision in your head too, like what the sound is and what style.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Right. Exactly. It's like there's a certain way I want it to sound like, to please myself first, foremost, instead of pleasing someone else. Because I am half the songwriter on this music. Yeah.
So the recording process for that album, being the fact that you were doing tracks at your own studio, or when you start to go lay down a track on a song, do you experiment a little bit and maybe do a few takes where you do this or do that and just play around until you sort of find the way through the song? Or
absolutely. Yeah. I do a lot of experimenting, and that's what's one of the great things about having your own studios. You can do that.
You can try different things.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be figured out today or whatever. You can come back and try different things and then listen to it at home, and then okay, this works and this doesn't, and come back and mess with it, so that's I was able to do that.
Yeah.
On this record.
But as good players or as good professional musicians, sometimes we don't really, even if we have the luxury to do it, we don't really spend too much time because you don't want to kill the vibe of it. You know what I mean? Like,
there's that. So, I try to be conscious of that. I would try to pretty much go as much as I could. I didn't do tons of editing and stuff. I wouldn't for my own thing, I didn't want to comp drum takes together too much.
Yeah.
So I pretty much would go for as much as I could one piece to try to try to get, like what you're saying, something that was inspired. Yeah. But I would try lots of different ideas, and the interesting thing about this record is there's lots of little loops and stuff mixed in. So with little percussive elements, little hi-hat sounding things and everything. So it was an interesting challenge to make a drum part that could weave around all these parts. Kind of like with Peter Gabriel tracks or something, to weave around these parts but not cover them up. So I had to think in terms of frequencies on the drums too. Like, okay, you can't get too washy here because there's little things I will cover up, and how do I leave space? So I had to work parts that way and compose parts that left all those cool little moments there and didn't cover them up.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, that's essential for us to do, I think.
Right.
Find the right frequencies sort of to play with. Also, maybe even drum sounds that don't get in the way of certain things.
Exactly. Lay off the cymbals here because you have cymbals. There's like a little loop hi-hat part going on. So let's let that frequency be there, and then I can play something on the toms or something else that isn't covering that up.
Right.
Things that don't. You don't want things to compete with each other.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're totally excited about this new record.
Thank you. Me too.
Everything that I've heard sounded awesome, and I highly recommend it to everybody who likes this kind of music.
comes probably from experience and listening to yourself, you know. For me, trying to produce myself when I'm playing drums, or try to think of producing myself when I'm listening to a track. Like, how do you, a lot of songs are 2 and 4. The kind of obvious part is what's going to work, but how do you do that and still be creative? Like, as a drummer, is a really challenging thing to do, you know? You don't have some of the obvious things that guitar players have. There's no pedal boards. There's no, how do you get inside the song, but you still got to play the boom, boom, you know? And that's been a real challenging thing to develop a creative process for. For me, that means getting inside the song. Like, when people send me the stems for songs, I like to get the vocal stem, the guitar stem, every little thing, so I can make a little mix and then really get into it. How to get inside the song, but then you can't really deviate from the part that works. So I did a track for Alex Lifeson's band. He has a band called Envy of None, and we did a track. And that was a situation for that. He told me nothing. He said, "Here, play this." So I sent a track. They liked it. It was kind of like the first pass I did was more interesting, where I was kind of turning some stuff around and whatnot. They liked it for a couple months, and they sent it back and said, it deviates too much from this pulse we want. I said, "Oh boy, you'll figure it out." So I said, "Okay, how am I going to do this?" But he doesn't want me just to go, so how do I get into the song? So I tried a couple passes, and finally I pulled up some stuff, and this started kind of like what Terry Bozzio would do. I started mimicking like some of the guitar chords and listening to some of the vocal parts and hitting some little cymbals that match with some of the vocal phrasing, but then keeping the pulse of the groove. So that, for me, was an interesting way of getting into the creative process and still keeping the role of what the drums need to do on that song.
Yeah.
And that's really listening.
Yeah.
And doing, obviously doing it for a little while so you understand that.
Yeah, exactly.
How
it's
to
like
do that.
The listening, all the learning of music that you've done over the years, all the catalog, all the different genres and stuff like that. Eventually you build up enough ideas that you could create from.
And that's what getting as much direction as I got literally was, "Oh, you'll hear it."
Yeah.
Like, okay. And so, and then hopefully you can, decipher that.
That's incredibly cool, because it's, it builds trust also with them, with you, and then
exactly. Yeah.
And the creative process. I mean, in the studio, it's one thing, and maybe the relationship is just between you and the track or the thing that brings that out of you. But live, that could happen in a lot of different situations, based on the chemistry of the band.
Absolutely. And that's more like a conversation. Even recording too, but especially live, there's a conversation of you're answering what this guy played, or it inspires you to go in a different direction based on who you're playing with or what they play.
Yeah. I call it the ability to listen and react.
Absolutely. Well, it's improvisation.
It's like when we're kids, we just we learn the music and go play it, and we play it sort of like that, and we don't know how to add things to it or make it our own yet, eventually.
Right. Or be the one that takes it in somewhere on stage. You're the one that goes, okay, you're going to lead everyone somewhere.
Yeah.
You're the one that, you can control that by doing this thing. Right. You know what I mean?
Playing what we feel in the moment.
Right.
Kind
and
of
everyone goes with you. It's like, okay, you create a whole different thing.
Yeah. But, everyone going with you, that takes also heavy listeners and good players that can do that.
For me, I think for my creative space to be at its best, it's surrounding myself with great listeners. Now that you mentioned that, I think that would really be one of the top things that I would always strive for. In that, when I'm making music, is people that listen.
Yeah, people that listen and react, and sort of build that trust between each other. That you can sort of go to places together and make the music more of a experience. Like it's more of a spiritual experience at that point. It's just things are floating.
Yeah, it's listening, and then And part of listening is also what not to play.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing this gig I've been doing for 2 years almost, Booker T, right? You know what I'm talking about? I mean, getting into music that is about what you don't play as much as what you do play. That's a great example of it. Like those cats and Al Jackson on drums, a lot of it was what they didn't play. You know, it's like all that space. And not like they didn't hear all those things you could do. They just chose not to, you know. It's about... So that really drilled that into me when I started... Right after I started doing that gig, I started like getting way into that headspace. Like, okay, just gonna what you don't play, just like lay the groove, you know.
Yeah. That's important to recognize in those situations. You know, Booker T is amazing creative, you know. All those recordings that they did before, you know, from the 60s, 70s. Just incredible stuff.
Right.
You know? And you having the experience and the ability to bring different things to the table is what makes you be able to do this kind of thing.
Well,
you can go to a rock gig and say, okay, I know I have to play within this idiom and just create stuff from that.
Right.
And you go to an R&B gig, and so I can play from this idiom and I can create a bunch of stuff from that. And that's because of years of playing and listening, you know.
You know, and I got to say, and with all those kind of guys, I'm sure you've experienced this too, when you're guys with that much experience and the real legendary cats like Booker and the Doors guys, and they know you're going to do the gig, right? So they rarely do they, in my experience, at least for me, have they told me what to play? Rarely.
Yeah.
It doesn't. They know you're going to honor the parts, but they also want you to be you too.
Yeah.
They don't want you, you know. So rarely is anything said about do this or play like rare.
Yeah, because they do that too, and they've recognized that that's really the way, you know, and so they want you to do your thing.
Speaking of the creative process, that's how, you know, you don't want to stifle someone's creativity. You want them there for what they bring to it.
Yeah.
Like when I first got the new Doors, 21st Century thing, you know, right before I was doing it, Stuart Copeland was doing it, who's, you know, one of my top 3 favorite drummers, you know, one of my heroes. And so when I was doing that gig early on, subbing for him initially, I remember thinking, because I could copy him pretty well. It's like, am I going to like kind of copy him and copy John Densmore? I don't think I'll do that. I'll just do what I do.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm going to go about it. Because I'm not going to do some cheap copy of those guys, you know. Yeah. And so I know when I just did it my way, Ray really liked that. That's one of the reasons I got the gig.
Yeah.
Because he told me later that the way I played it, you know, a little more rockin' or whatever, he liked that.
Yeah, that's when we excel too. It's like, you know, just having that trust and ability to go beyond the parts, just beyond the parts and make the music, you know, elevate the music with the rest of the band. You know? Right. That's why you or I, whoever is there, to bring what we bring to it. Yeah. Too. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's so much fun.
That's when it's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I love playing with you, man.
I love playing with you too. You know, we've had some pretty killer jams where we just like went off on, you know, something and just got excited about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just kept playing. Sometimes it would turn into a 20-minute jam.
Yeah. You know what else is cool working with these guys? I'm just thinking about it. You know, even I've always just been the hired in these groups, the hired drummer in the rhythm section. But they've never they've always pretty much on stage you're being an equal.
Yeah.
With the guys I've worked with.
Yeah.
You know, I've always noticed that. It's like they welcome that.
Yeah.
Or even pushing them.
They want that.
You might not expect that. Like playing with Ray and Robbie, it's like I would push them or something, and it was never like. So many faces. They're like, yes, it's cool. Being equal. I mean, like, you know, and even with the Booker gig, you know, I can take it somewhere and he's very open to giving you your thing and letting you have your moment. So
Yeah.
much respect to those guys, man, for that.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, they recognize the importance of being free and you know, creativity and all that kind of stuff.
Right, and how to let you feel that you can be you're most creative.
Yeah,
is by
bring out the best in
letting
you. Yeah.
Welcoming what you bring, right? And letting you stir the pot too.
Yeah.
Because it's a communication, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. That means sometimes they want to let you start the sentence, the musical sentence, you know? They're cool with it.
Well, it's supposed to be fun, number one, right?
That too.
So,
yeah, it always is. And when you can do that, when you play with people that let you do that, it's fun.
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, which brings up something, you know, I think about sometimes I hear about, you know, like certain players getting a big gig and being all nervous about it, you know, after they got the gig, after the fact. Mm-hmm. When it's maybe hard to see for them at the time, but you know, the reason they got the gig in the first place is because the people that they played with liked what they did, and now they're hired, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to at that point just kind of relax and do your thing, you know.
True, that's true.
So,
yeah, that's a good point.
A lot of people get nervous, is what I'm saying.
I know. Yeah. I mean, for me, as long as I feel like I know the music well enough that I can forget it almost. I know it so really well enough that it's internalized, then that helps the nerves go away, you know, for me. Yeah, once I really know the tunes inside and out.
Yeah. What's your process of learning the tunes? For me,
I always write out a
chart.
Yeah, a little chart. Initially, I try to have it someplace I can hide it, maybe like an iPad or whatever. You know, at first, I like to
short form charts or
no, they're pretty.
Like your own kind of
my own
stuff?
version, but I think a lot of other drummers could probably read it.
Okay.
It's mostly form and then some of the important fills and, you know, dynamic changes. But I like to really have that as a reference. Then I'll try to get off of it. And especially if it's a gig where you don't play a lot, like say you do a gig and then 3 months later you do it again, I like to be able to go back and have that. And if you're playing with an artist who pulls out a tune you haven't played in a while, you know.
It's like instant recall.
Yeah, you can have it if they haven't played it in a while, you can go, oh, how's this one going, pull it up. And I've never played with anyone that bitched about that.
Yeah.
What, you're doing that? Never had a problem.
Yeah.
No one's cared that if I'll discreetly put like an iPad somewhere or something.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they know it's there. If they do, they appreciate that you do the gig well.
Yeah.
You know, and you know
as long as you could play it well.
Right.
You know? But the thing is, for us, our goal is to finally not depend on the chart and just play it from the heart.
Exactly.
You know, that's the main goal.
Right. Exactly.
So,
but
we eventually get there.
Exactly. That's how I like to learn it, is obviously practicing it, but also writing it and reading it too. You know, for me, I just remember it better that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it helps, I think, with the form sometimes to write out the form and see it on the page first and go, okay, well, now I recognize there's 8 bars here, there's 16 bars there, you know, and once you get to know the verse and the chorus well, and it's all form at that point, right? So and you just have to adapt it and put feeling into it and all that.
Exactly.
Play it like you mean it.
Exactly.
Well, man, we've totally enjoyed having you here. Thanks so much for making the time to do this.
My pleasure.
And be a part of our channel. Really excited about your album.
Thank you.
New album. And we want people to check it out. That is todaywasyesterday.com, right? And go check out tydennis.com too. tydennisdrums.com, excuse me. Some amazing stuff on his site. There's amazing videos with other bands as well that he's played with, and you'll get to see Ty's magic.
Thanks, man. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, and best of luck. Best of luck for the new album.
It's so good to see you again, man.
You too.
All right, man.
All right.
Thank you.